Welcome back to Board Game Breakdown. I'm Christopher Solomon. In this burst video, we will be diving into the massive Euro Tiletum. If you prefer a longer video where I get into the details of setup and gameplay, use this link here. If not, let's put 3 minutes on the timer and get started. Like many Euros, Tiletum combines multiple mechanics such as dice rolling, set collection, and point-to-point movement, just to name a few. Each round culminates in a fair taking place in a different city across the European continent, giving players an extra chance at victory points. Before we rush headlong into the gameplay, let's quickly look at the setup and the components. The game spans 2 boards, the main game board and the individual player boards. Setup revolves around putting out tiles, and yes, you guessed it, even more tiles. The tiles range from bonus tiles, to contract tiles, to character tiles. Players also need to place all the cathedral pieces out across the map, along with randomly choosing 3 tiles from the location tiles to determine which cities will host the fairs. These are paired up with a randomly chosen fair token, which will determine the scoring guidelines for that particular fair. Players will choose a color and take all the pieces in that color, putting a few of the houses and pillars into their pool to use, and placing the rest across their player board to utilize later. Dice matching the 5 resources, gold, food, wool, stone, and iron, are placed into a bag ready to be used in the first phase of the game. The game spans 4 rounds, with each round spanning 5 phases, with the majority of the action happening in Phase 2, aptly titled the Action Phase. During the first phase, the die are rolled and placed around the action wheel, matching up with the die value printed on each wedge of the wheel. In the action phase, the first player will choose a die from the wheel to place on their player board. This awards the player with 2 things. 1, an amount of a resource matching the color of the die, and then an amount of action points equal to 7 minus the die value. In this way, players need to decide each turn if they want a lot of resources at the sacrifice of action points or the other way around. The wedge on the wheel also determines the action the player will take that turn. The actions consist of 5 unique action types and then 1 wild category called the Joker. The Merchant and Architect actions allow you to spend points to move tokens around the map and to build houses and pillars in certain cities. This is important as houses allow you to take part in future fairs and pillars allow you to build the various cathedrals around the board. But one can't just focus on a single action type, as you'll eventually run out of usable houses and pillars. The contract action and character actions help players get more of these items. Contract actions allow players to buy contracts from the board and then spend resources to fulfill them, thus gaining victory points and more pillars. The character actions allow players to invite character tiles onto their player board, being awarded with bonuses and more house tokens. Lastly, there is the King Track action, which enables players to move up the King Track, ultimately helping them to become first player and scoring more victory points. But watch out, because if you ignore the King Track, you might just end up with negative points at the end of the round. Rounds finish up with players scoring the specific fair for that round, and then play starts again. There's a multitude of other intertwining things happening in Tiletum, but hopefully this video gives you a quick glance at how the game plays. It also comes packaged with a wonderfully robust single-player mode that might be just as good as the multiplayer version. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe and check out our website at boardgamebreakdown.com.